I want you to just close your eyes for a second and imagine a scenario with me. It's a little specific, but just try and picture it.
Okay, I'm with you.
Picture a dusty road in a really remote village. We are talking deep countryside, maybe 3-4 hours of hard driving from the nearest city that has anything like a skyline.
Got it. Miles from anywhere.
And you're 70 years old. You've lived in this village your whole life. You've been noticing lately your vision's getting a little blurry. Maybe it's just age, maybe it's the dust, but you decide to walk down the street to the community clinic. And when I say clinic, I mean it's not a hospital, it's one room.
Right. A nurse, a couple of chairs, that's about it.
Exactly. You sit down, you put your chin on that little plastic rest, and a camera snaps a picture of the back of your eye. Standard stuff, right? Just expecting them to tell you if you need reader glasses or maybe, if you have a cataract starting.
That's the normal expectation, yeah.
But here's where reality just completely shifts. While you are sitting there, blinking away the flash, a machine isn't just looking at your lens. An algorithm is analyzing the microscopic blood vessels in your retina.
Okay.
It's cross-referencing that specific pattern with millions of other data points it's already seen. It's checking your kidney function.
From an eye scan.
From an eye scan. It's estimating your biological age and is predicting your risk of having a stroke in the next 6 months. And get this, before you've even stood up to put your coat back on, that data has been crunched by a server hundreds of miles away. It's flagged you as high risk, and it has sent a custom medication plan back to the local doctor's tablet.
I mean, that sounds like pure science fiction. It sounds like something out of a film set in, 2050?
Exactly. But the crazy part, and the whole reason we're talking today, is that this isn't fiction. This is a description of smart health research pilots that are happening right now.
That really is the fascinating part. It's not a what if. It's a current reality for these research projects. It's a glimpse into how some of the top minds are trying to completely overhaul healthcare for an aging population.
And that's what we're doing today. We are going on a deep dive into exactly that. We're looking at a huge stack of research, primarily out of Capital Medical University, or CMU, in Beijing, all under this umbrella of precision medicine and AI for China's aging society.
Right.
And honestly, the stuff in here is, it's just mind-blowing. From oxygen masks that literally save brain tissue to this AI that can read your kidney function through your eyes. But it's not just about cool gadgets.
No, absolutely not. It's so much bigger than that.
We are talking about a fundamental philosophical shift in how we approach the
goal
human
they're
body
shooting
as it
for.
gets older.
A
And the
future where
context here is
healthcare
just
isn't about
massive. You mentioned CMU in Beijing. And to really get why this kind of innovation is exploding out of that specific place, you have to look at the demographics. China has the world's largest population of people aged 60 and over.
The numbers are just staggering.
They are. The projections are that it will surpass 400 million people over the age of 60 by the year 2035.
400 million. Just to put that in perspective for everyone listening, that is significantly larger than the entire population of the United States.
It is. I've heard it called a silver tsunami. And when you have a population shift that dramatic, you face an absolute explosion of age-related chronic diseases. We're talking about stroke, heart issues, vision loss, hypertension.
All the big ones.
All of them. And the current healthcare model, which, is pretty similar everywhere in the world, is reactive. You wait until something breaks, and then you try to fix it.
Right.
That model simply cannot handle the volume of 400 million elderly patients.
Yeah.
It would completely collapse under the strain.
It's like only taking your car to the mechanic when the engine is literally on fire.
Precisely. The president of CMU, a researcher named Sunming Ji, he describes the current state of medicine as fragmented responses. You treat the heart in one building, then you go to a different building to treat the eye, then another for the brain. It's all separate.
So the mission of this deep dive today is to unpack how they're trying to shift from that fragmented reactive model to something. What do they call it? Systemic, precise, and proactive.
That's the trifecta.
And there was this key phrase in the research that just jumped out at me. It really frames everything we are going to talk about. It's not just about lifespan.
No.
Yeah.
And that right there, that is the core philosophical shift. It's the crucial difference between lifespan and health span.
Explain that.
Lifespan is just a number. It's the number of years you're alive. And modern medicine is actually very, very good at extending lifespan. We can keep a body alive for a long time.
Sure.
But health span, Health span is the number of years you spend in good health. Independent, seeing clearly, thinking straight, functioning. The goal of all this new technology isn't just to keep people breathing longer, it's to keep them healthy and out of nursing homes.
I love that distinction. It's about the quality of the years, not just the quantity. Okay, so let's unpack this. We've got 3 main areas to cover today to see how this philosophy plays out in the real world. A revolution in stroke treatment, a whole new way of thinking about blood pressure, and then we'll come back to this AI eye scanning magic.
Sounds good.
Let's start with the real heavy hitter, stroke.
It's definitely the heavy hitter. I mean, it's a leading cause of death and disability globally, and for this aging demographic, it's a massive, massive issue.
And the research we're looking at, it focuses on a specific, and from the sounds of it, a really nasty type of stroke.
It does. They're looking specifically at something called basilar artery occlusion, or BAO.
BAO, that sounds intense. Break that down for us. What makes this one so much worse than others?
So your basilar artery, it's a major artery at the base of your brain. Think of it like the main water main coming into a house. It supplies blood to the brainstem, the cerebellum, and the thalamus.
Okay, so the really important bits.
The most vital functions, we're talking breathing, consciousness, balance, motor control, the absolute fundamentals.
So if that main pipe gets clogged, the lights go out.
They go out fast. And the statistics are horrifying. The mortality rate for this specific type of stroke, if it's left untreated, is almost 80%.
80%, that's terrifying.
It is. And for the few who do survive, the disability is often profound. You can end up with something called locked-in syndrome, where you were fully conscious, fully aware, but completely paralyzed. You can only move your eyes.
That's the stuff of nightmares.
It is. And the thing about any stroke, but especially this one, is that it is a frantic race against the clock. As Sunming Ji puts it in his notes, every second after a vessel is blocked, more brain tissue is lost. We have a saying in neurology, time is brain.
So the plumbing is clogged and the house is, well, it's dying. How do they fix it?
The main intervention is a procedure called mechanical thrombectomy.
Thrombectomy. So clot removal.
Exactly. They go in through the blood vessels, usually starting in an artery in the groin, with a very thin tube, a catheter. They thread this thing all the way up through your body, into your neck, and into the brain.
Wow.
Then they use a minimally invasive tool. Often it's called a stent retriever, which is like a tiny self-expanding wire cage. They deploy it inside the clot, it opens up, grabs the clot, and then they physically pull the whole thing out.
It's like sending a tiny plumber up into your brain.
It's exactly like that, and it's often paired with something called angioplasty, where they might use a tiny balloon or even place a small metal tube, a stent, to keep the artery propped open if it's narrowed.
That sounds incredibly difficult. The precision needed must be immense.
It is extremely difficult and it's risky. But for a long time, the biggest challenge wasn't the procedure itself, it was time. The medical consensus was that if you didn't get this done almost immediately, we're talking within a 6-hour window of the stroke starting, it was too late.
6 hours.
The thinking was the damage was done.
Yeah.
The brain tissue was dead. Don't even try.
And that's where this new research comes in, right? The attention and the BAOS trials.
Correct. These were 2 massive landmark trials run by G's team. And they wanted to answer one crucial life or death question. Can we extend that window? Because think about our villager from the intro.
Right.
If you live 4 hours from a major stroke center, a 6-hour window is basically a death sentence.
Yeah, by the time you realize what's happening, call for help, wait for an ambulance, and get transported, your time is already up.
It's gone. So these trials tested patient outcomes when the mechanical thrombectomy was performed within 6 to 24 hours of the stroke's onset.
24 hours. I mean, that feels like an eternity when you're talking about brain tissue dying every single second.
It does seem counterintuitive, but the results were an absolute game changer. They found that for a specific subset of patients, those who still had salvageable brain tissue, extending the treatment window out to 24 hours meant they could save lives and brains that would have previously just been written off.
This is enormous for that rural access problem.
It completely changes the geography of survival. A 24-hour window means you can stabilize a patient in a small rural clinic, put them in an ambulance, maybe even a helicopter, and get them to the big city hospital. It gives them a fighting chance. It opens up access to this life-saving care for millions of people.
Okay, so that's the fantastic news. We can operate later, we can reopen the vessel, but I feel a but coming.
There is a very significant but.
Yeah.
And this is where the story gets really complex and, frankly, really interesting from a biological standpoint.
Go on.
The researchers found this surprising statistic. In these trials, they were technically successful in reopening the clogged blood vessels in nearly 90% of the cases.
90%? That sounds like an A+. The pipe is clear. Problem solved.
You would think so, but here's the kicker. Only about 40% of those patients, where the surgery was a success, only 40% actually regained good long-term brain function.
Wait, hang on. So you're saying the operation worked, the blood is flowing again, but the patient didn't get better?
For more than half of them, yes. G notes this explicitly in the paper. He says, the artery may be open, but the brain is not always saved.
Why? I don't get it. If the blood is flowing, why isn't the brain happy?
It's a cruel biological paradox called reperfusion injury.
Reperfusion? So reflowing.
Exactly, injury caused by the return of blood flow. Imagine a field that's been in a drought for months. If you suddenly hit it with a fire hose, you don't save the crops, you just wash away the topsoil.
Oh, okay.
It's similar in the brain. When those cells have been starved of oxygen for, say, 12 or 15 hours, they're in this fragile, stunned, suspended state. If you suddenly blast them with a torrent of oxygen-rich blood, it can trigger a massive inflammatory response and something called oxidative stress. It's like pouring water on a grease fire. The sudden rush of resources is actually toxic to the weakened cells.
So the plumbing fix, the very thing that's meant to save the house, can actually finish it off.
In a way, yes. Plus, you have the simple fact that during those 12 or 15 hours of waiting and transport, the brain tissue was just steadily deteriorating. The researchers realized they needed a bridge. They needed something to protect the brain while they were waiting to do the surgery.
Something to buy time for the brain itself.
Precisely. And the solution they found is surprisingly simple.
It's not another high-tech robot.
It is not. It's oxygen.
Just oxygen, like from a tank with a face mask?
Essentially, yes. This led to the next phase of their research, which they call the OPENS trials. OPEN-as-1 was the small pilot, and OPEN-as-2 was a larger trial with about 280 patients. They focused on patients with moderate strokes who were treated within that original 6-hour window.
And what was the intervention? What did they do differently?
They simply delivered supplementary high-flow oxygen through a standard face mask right away.
Okay, how does that help if the pipe is still blocked?
So the hypothesis is simple. The blood flow is restricted by the clot, right? It's not zero, but it's a trickle. But the idea is, if we can make that trickle of blood incredibly rich with oxygen, if we can hypersaturate it, we might deliver just enough O2 to the surrounding at-risk brain tissue to keep it alive.
You're not fixing the flow, you're enriching what little flow there is.
Exactly. You're trying to save what's called a penumbra.
The penumbra, that's a great word.
It is. It refers to the shadow zone. It's the area of brain tissue that's surrounding the core, dead part of the stroke. It's stunned, it's starving for oxygen, but it's not dead yet. The penumbra is what we're fighting to save.
So the oxygen is like throwing a life preserver to those brain cells just to keep them afloat until the surgery can arrive.
That is the perfect analogy. And the data from the OPEN-as-2 trial show that this simple, non-invasive intervention worked. It helped preserve brain function. It led to better outcomes.
And the implications of that are massive, especially for a rural patient.
Huge. They are now investigating starting this oxygen therapy even earlier, like the second the paramedics arrive, in the ambulance on the way to the hospital.
You can't do brain surgery in the back of a van, but you can absolutely put an oxygen mask on someone.
Precisely. It is a low-tech bridge to a high-tech surgery. It helps manage the health span by preserving the tissue so that when the surgeons finally get in there, there's more healthy brain left to save. It connects the pre-hospital phase to the in-hospital phase seamlessly.
It's so elegant. Okay, so that's how we're treating the crisis. But let's
surgically
take a step
remove
back,
that clot
because
could
the best
actually
way to
work up
survive
to
a stroke
24
is
hours
to,
after
well,
the stroke
not have one in the
starts.
first place.
Absolutely.
This is a
Prevention
total
is
game changer
always,
because it blows
always
that
better
window
than
of
the
hope
cure.
wide open,
And that brings us
especially
to the
for people who live in
second pillar of this
rural
whole
areas
research
far from a
initiative,
major
blood
hospital.
pressure.
And the
Silent
surgery
killer.
itself,
It really is. The stats are, again, just eye-watering. Hypertension affects more than half of all adults aged 60 and over in China.
More than half.
And it is the primary driver for everything we just talked about, stroke, but also heart failure, coronary artery disease, kidney disease.
There was a quote from Jun Kai, a cardiologist at CMU, that really stuck with me. He said something like, "In daily practice, we often see the complications first, long before patients realize their blood pressure has been high for years."
And that is the absolute tragedy of hypertension. It doesn't hurt. You don't feel it. You could walk around for a decade with dangerously high blood pressure and feel totally fine until the day you suddenly have a massive stroke or your kidneys fail.
So prevention is everything. But There's been this long-standing debate in medicine, right, which is what exactly is safe blood pressure for older people?
Yes. How low should you go? For a long time, the conventional wisdom was that you could be a bit more lenient with older adults. The thinking was their arteries are naturally stiffer with age, and if you lower their pressure too much, they might get dizzy, fall over, maybe not get enough blood to the brain.
Right, the treatment could be worse than the disease.
So Kai's team launched the SEP-SEP trial to try and settle this debate. This was a massive undertaking. They enrolled 80,500 patients, all between 60 and 80 years old, across 42 different hospitals.
That's a very serious sample size.
Oh yeah, this was designed to be definitive. And they split them into two groups to compare two different treatment targets. Group A was the standard target. Keep the systolic pressure, that's the top number, between 130 and 150.
Okay, so that's what we used to think of as fine for an older person.
Right. Then there was Group B. They were the intensive target.
It's incredibly
The goal was to
effective.
get their systolic
In the
number
trials,
down to
doctors were able to
between
reopen
110
that
and
blocked
130.
artery in almost
Wow, that's
90% of
significantly
cases.
lower. 110
So
is
you
what
think,
you'd expect
great,
a healthy
problem
30-year-old
solved,
to
right?
have.
It is
Well,
aggressive, no
There's
question.
a catch.
But after
And
following
here
these
is the
thousands of
problem.
patients for 3
Take a
years,
look at this
the results
gap.
were crystal clear.
What did they find?
The group with the lower blood pressure, the intensive target group, had significantly fewer cardiovascular events. Strokes, heart attacks, heart failure. And specifically, they had a 33% reduction in their risk of stroke.
A third fewer strokes just by aiming for a lower number on a cuff? That is incredibly impactful.
It is. It essentially redefines the safe zone. It strongly suggests that for years we have been too lenient with blood pressure in the elderly. But, and this is why you have to read the fine print, Kai is very careful to point out the limitations of the study.
Right, I noticed that. He mentioned that frailer individuals were excluded from the trial.
Exactly. This study looked at relatively robust 60 to 80-year-olds. If someone is very frail or has multiple other complicated conditions or a big problem with dizziness when they stand up, then dropping their pressure target to 110 could actually be dangerous.
You don't want to prevent a future stroke, but cause a broken hip today from a fall.
That's the balance. So it's not a blanket, one-size-fits-all instruction, but for the vast majority of that demographic, getting that number down protects the brain, the heart, and the kidneys.
But Kai isn't stopping there. He's asking an even deeper question.
He's asking. Why wait until someone actually has hypertension to treat them? Can we stop the disease from ever fully developing in the first place?
And this is the STEP pre-trial they mention.
Yes. This is, to me, even more ambitious. They are enrolling 25,000 participants who have what's called high normal blood pressure. So technically, they aren't hypertensive yet. Their top number is in that 130 to 139 range.
The warning zone.
Exactly. And the goal is to see if treating them with medication now, in that warning zone, actually prevents the disease from ever taking root.
That is the very definition of proactive medicine. It's moving the starting line for treatment. But the research went even deeper beyond just these huge clinical trials or looking at the cellular level. This part was a bit dense, so let's unpack it. They identified a specific protein.
Yes. This is where we get into the mechanistic research. It's not just about what works, but why it works. Understanding the actual machinery of the body. Kay's team wanted to know, how does a blood vessel know that the pressure inside it is too high? How does it feel the force of the blood flow?
Right. A blood vessel doesn't have a brain. It can't think.
Exactly. But it has sensors. And they identified a specific cell membrane protein called GPR146 and an ion channel called PAES1.
GPR146 and piezo1. They sound like a robot comedy duo. What do they actually do?
So think of them as tiny microscopic pressure sensors embedded in the wall of your artery. As blood rushes past, it creates friction, a physical force called shear stress. When that flow becomes too high pressure or turbulent, the piezo1 channel gets physically pushed or stretched.
Okay, so it's a motion detector.
A motion detector that opens the gate. That physical push opens the ion channel, and that converts the mechanical stress, the pushing, into a chemical signal inside the cell.
And what does that chemical signal say?
It basically tells the cell's command center, hey, we are under a lot of strain out here. We need to reinforce the walls.
And reinforcing the walls means what exactly?
It triggers a process called vascular remodeling. The smooth muscle cells in the blood vessel wall actually change their structure. They grow, they multiply, they make the vessel wall thicker and stiffer.
Which, wait, that makes the tube narrower.
Yeah.
Which would make the pressure go up even more.
Precisely. It is a vicious, destructive feedback loop. The sensor detects high pressure, which triggers a stiffening of the vessel, which causes even higher pressure. By identifying these specific proteins, GPR146 and piezo1, we now have a target. We know who starts this disastrous cycle.
So if you can find a way to shut them up or block that signal, you could stop the cycle before it even starts.
That is the multi-million-dollar hope. Kai suggests this could lead to entirely new classes of treatments, not just pills that make you pee out excess fluid, but maybe things like vaccines or gene modulation therapies.
A vaccine for high blood pressure, that sounds futuristic.
It does, but it's mechanistically possible. If you can develop a therapy that interrupts that specific GPR146 or PIAS1 signal at the cellular source, you might stop the vessel remodeling from ever happening. You wouldn't just be managing the symptom, the high pressure, you'd be preventing the underlying disease of the vessel itself.
That's true root cause medicine. Okay, this is amazing. So we've covered fixing the brain after the crisis hits with oxygen and surgery. And we've covered preventing the crisis by managing blood pressure, both with clinical targets and now these cellular targets. Right. Now let's talk about the missing piece. How do we find these problems in millions of people before they turn into disasters? This brings us full circle back to that eye exam in the remote village.
The eye. As we said at the top, it truly is the window to the body.
And we're talking about a specific project here called Vision FM.
Yes. This is the big AI component of their strategy. Now, to set the stage, we know hypertension hurts your eyes, but Ningli Wang, who's the director of the Beijing Tongren Eye Center, points out that it's not just blood pressure. All sorts of eye conditions are directly associated with chronic systemic diseases.
Meaning, if your body as a whole is sick, your eyes are one of the first places to show it.
Exactly. The eye is the only organ in the entire human body where you can look inside and directly see raw nerves and blood vessels without cutting the patient open. It is a live video feed of your vascular and neurological health.
But a human doctor can only see so much, right? An ophthalmologist might look in and say, oh, those vessels look a bit stressed, but they can't measure every single capillary.
Correct. And that brings us to the screening problem. Screening millions of elderly people for single diseases is just prohibitively expensive and time-consuming. If you set up a national program just to screen for glaucoma, it costs a fortune. Just for kidney disease, another fortune in blood tests. But Wang's insight was, if you can combine screening for, say, the 5 major causes of blindness plus major systemic diseases into a single quick checkup, suddenly it becomes incredibly cost-effective.
And that's where the AI comes in. That's Vision FM.
That's Vision FM. It's what they call a multimodal vision foundation model, and it was co-developed with the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And the scale of this thing is just, it's hard to comprehend. They pre-trained this AI on data from 560,000 people.
500,000 people.
And 3.4 million ophthalmic images.
Wow.
And it's multimodal, meaning it understands 8 different kinds of eye imaging. The standard color photo, infrared, something called OCT, which gives you a cross-section. So it's looking at the eye in layers and wavelengths a human can't even perceive.
But here's the part that really made my jaw drop when I was reading this. It doesn't just look for eye diseases like glaucoma or macular degeneration.
No, this is the absolute aha moment of the whole project. The way they trained the AI was genius. They used paired data sets. So for each of those 3.4 million retinal images, they matched it with that specific patient's actual laboratory blood test results from the same day.
So the AI literally learned to associate what the inside of the eye looks like with what the blood says.
Exactly. It taught itself the correlations. It learned when the tiny vessels in the retina curved in this specific way, the patient's kidney creatinine level is usually that. And the result is that this AI can now predict a whole panel of systemic health markers just by looking at that eye scan.
Give us some examples. What can it actually see?
It can predict your complete blood count, things like hemoglobin levels. It can predict your renal, your kidney function. It can predict your blood glucose and your lipid profile, like cholesterol. It can even make a very accurate estimation of your biological age, separate from your chronological age.
And how accurate are these predictions?
The source says it has an average accuracy close to 80% for many of these key markers. Now, is it as perfectly precise as a laboratory blood draw from a vein? No, not yet. But as a fast, cheap, non-invasive screening tool, it is absolutely revolutionary.
That's unbelievable. You look into a camera lens for 5 seconds and a computer can tell you your kidneys might be in trouble.
Wang explains it beautifully. He says, the eye is an organ that allows non-invasive direct observation. It reveals the state of the rest of the body. His logic is simple. If the microvessels in your eye are damaged and twisted, it's highly likely that the microvessels in your kidneys and your heart are in a similar state.
And the application for this is just perfectly tailored for that aging society problem we started with.
Perfectly. They are already piloting this technology in community clinics and, my favorite part, in mobile health vans.
I love the idea of the mobile van.
Right. Imagine a van driving into that remote, dusty village we talked about. It's got this AI camera set up in the back. The elderly residents who maybe haven't seen a specialist in 20 years can come in, get a quick, painless 5-minute scan. And in minutes, the local health worker knows who is at high risk for kidney failure, who likely has undiagnosed diabetes, and who needs an urgent referral for their high stroke risk.
And it enables telemedicine on a massive scale.
100%. The digital images are standardized and high quality. They can be instantly and securely shared across hospital networks. So a top expert in Beijing can remotely consult on a patient in a mountain village thousands of miles away. It bridges that massive geographical and expertise gap.
It's not just one tool, it's a complete ecosystem.
That is the word. Synthesis. It's all about synthesis.
So let's try and do that now. Let's wrap this all up. How do we connect all these dots? We've got the oxygen bridge for strokes, the intensive blood pressure targets, and the AI that reads your body through your eyes.
It all fits into what Sunming Ji calls the smart health network. It's not just a collection of cool, separate gadgets.
Yeah.
It is designed to be a continuous, unbroken chain of care.
Okay, so walk me through the chain. How does a patient move through it?
So it starts with prevention. That's the STEP trial. It's establishing the evidence that we need to keep blood pressure lower in the elderly to protect their vessels in the first place.
Step 1, stop the problem before it starts.
Right. Then comes screening. That's Vision FM in the mobile vans. Going out into the community to find the high-risk patients early before they have a catastrophe. Then diagnosis, which is confirmed with more traditional methods. Then treatment, that's the advanced mechanical thrombectomy for stroke, made more effective by the oxygen bridge that buys them precious time.
And then after that?
And finally, rehabilitation, which we didn't get into as much, but it's the whole process of recovery, which is also being enhanced by technology. Each step feeds into the next.
It sounds perfect on paper. But, big complex systems like this have a habit of breaking. What does it actually take to make this nationwide network function?
It's a huge challenge. GME is very clear on the requirements. First, he says you need new ways to share knowledge. The data has to be able to flow seamlessly and securely between the mobile van, the local clinic, and the big city hospital.
The plumbing of the system.
The digital plumbing. Second, you need clear regulations and standard procedures. I mean, we're not going to get preachy about ethics here, but just on a functional level, if you are feeding millions of people's private medical data into an AI, you need ironclad standards to safeguard privacy and assure the data is accurate. If people don't trust the system, they won't use it.
Right. Trust is a functional requirement, not just a nice to have.
Exactly. And third, this is my favorite point he made, collaboration. He says the real breakthroughs will only come from people who can simultaneously stand at the patient's bedside and work at the lab bench.
The hybrid scientist doctor.
Yes. You can't just have data scientists building code in a vacuum and doctors treating patients in a silo. You need the clinician in the operating room to be able to go to the engineer and say, this is what a stroke actually looks and feels like. Your sensor needs to detect this. You need the basic scientist who's studying the piezo-1 protein to be talking to the public health official who's running the screening vans.
It's a call for a completely new interdisciplinary kind of medicine.
It is. And it's all in service of that shift we talked about at the beginning. It's a shift away from what is basically sick care fixing you after you break to true healthcare, keeping you from breaking in the first place.
So we've gone from an oxygen mask in an ambulance all the way to an AI that can see the warning signs of kidney failure in a photograph of an eye. It's a lot to process.
It really is.
Yeah.
But if you take just one thing away from this deep dive today, it should be this. The goal here isn't just to manage the inevitable decline of 400 million people. It's not just palliative care on a massive scale. It's a real, tangible effort to fundamentally change the trajectory of aging. It's about ensuring that those extra years that medicine gives us are years of quality, independence, and health.
I just can't stop thinking about that eye scan. It really makes you wonder.
What's that?
Well, if the eye can reveal the health of the kidney and the blood, what other non-invasive signals is our body broadcasting right now that we just haven't built the AI to decode yet?
That's a fascinating thought.
I mean, maybe it's in the subtle tremors in our voice.
Awesome.
The precise way that we walk. Maybe our gait holds the key to diagnosing neurological conditions years before they show up. What else is our body telling us?
The body is constantly talking. We're just finally, after centuries, building the translators to understand the language. It's an incredible frontier.
And as these tools move from major hospitals to mobile vans, and eventually to our smartphones. The very definition of a doctor's visit might change forever. It's not you going to the hospital, it's the hospital coming to you, or even just quietly monitoring you in the background all the time, keeping you safe.
A proactive future. It's a massive challenge, but the path is definitely there.
It certainly is. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the future of health.
It was a pleasure, as always.
See you next time on The Deep Dive.